Yes, thanks for joining me once again and welcome to round 5 of the Scottish Classic Motorcycle Club's 2019 Racing Championship, right here at Townfoot Farm in a very sunny Thornhill. Yes, hello again and thanks for taking the time to tune in once more to my YouTube channel. Now today we've made the journey to Townfoot Farm in Thornhill near Dumfries on the Scottish borders to hold round 5 of the Scottish Classic Motorcycle Racing Club's 2019 Racing Championship. Now we had a fantastic weekend of racing at the Cumberland Grand National a few weeks past. And that of course was up until we heard the very sad news of the tragic passing of one of our club members, Ian Robertson. Now Ian of course was a club member from the very first outset of the Scottish Classic Motorcycle Racing Club and raced at all the Scottish rounds and even raced in Europe and internationally as well in America and even Australia. Now no one will forget Ian's laughter and his exuberance on the Saturday night social nights prior to race day. Ian was always the one who was carrying on and having a laugh, and everyone will always remember Ian's big hearty smile. Ian never had a sad face on him at any time in his life and was always smiling, so Ian's memory will always live on in the Scottish Classic Motorcycle Racing Club, and you can almost be sure that we will never forget him. So anyway, we're here to cover this round 5 event here at Thornhill. Now the weather forecast for today is absolutely superb, as my friend the Midgie is already starting to feast on my coupon. So I'm going to get out of here pretty quick before I turn into the Elephant Man once again. So without further ado, let's just head back to the paddock and see if we can catch a glimpse of some of those classic racing motorcycles that are soon to take part in this round 5 event here at Thornhill. Yes, hello and thanks for joining me once again as we make our way through the Thornhill Paddock at this round 5 event here at Townfoot Farm. Now we're going to try and catch a glimpse of some of these very nice bikes, of course, which will soon be racing at this round 5 event. And the first bike we're going to look at is this very nice 540 4-stroke Yamaha belonging to John Fullerton. Now John has been racing this bike with the Classic Club for quite some time now and absolutely loves the power from this big massive 540 4-stroke Yamaha motor. Now this particular clip was taken quite early in the morning, and as you can see, John still has his improvised security device still locking the bike up in case any undesirables would like to help themselves to your beloved machine. Best not take any chances regardless of any motocross event that you're attending. If these guys want to steal your bike, they will certainly steal it. But these big 4-stroke Yamaha motors are very popular in the world of classic and twin shock racing, as well you know these bikes are ultra reliable when it comes to the reliability of the motor, and of course not to mention that they're pretty damn quick as well. Now next up we have a bike that has been seen on my YouTube channel before at Scottish Classic events. This is Kevin Smith's absolutely stunning looking Maico 250 Spider. Now I'm not entirely sure what year these 250 monoshock Spiders came out. I think it was either 82 or 83, but naturally of course I stand to be corrected on that fact once again. But nevertheless, a very nice looking bike, this machine of Kevin's. Now as you can see, Kevin has his own tribute to the late Ian Robertson, who of course used to race this number 100 on his machine. Of course these monoshock 250 Maicos were not as agile and as quick as the iconic 81 490 Maico, but nevertheless it was a decent bike, and you can see this bike of Kevin's in action on the track in the pre-1984 class. And Kevin's lovely 250 Maico Spider looks absolutely stunning there in the Thornhill morning sunshine. Okay, Maico time again. This is John Porteous's 1981 440 Maico. I personally had a 440 1980 bike, of course, and the geometry of the 1980 bike was pretty horrendous, really, to tell the truth. It was certainly no patch on this 1981 model, but nevertheless the 440 was a very nice engine for your average club rider. Not as potent as the 1981 490 motor, but nevertheless a very good engine for your average club rider. Now John is currently using this 440 Maico up until he receives his brand new machine. He is currently awaiting a 500 HPF Honda being built for himself, so John's looking forward to his brand new bike, and we will feature it here on my YouTube channel as soon as John takes delivery. So that's a very brief look at John Porteous's 81 440 Maico. Now the next bike we feature is this lovely 4-valve CCM. Now I don't know an awful lot about the bike or the rider. I think that this was the rider's first ever venture out with the Scottish Classic Racing Club, and unfortunately I don't know the rider's name at this point, but nevertheless it was a very nice big CCM, one of these Alan Clues derived old BSA machines, of course. Now of course they're not the cheapest bikes to own and race, these old CCMs. They can be very expensive to buy initially, but if you're lucky enough to have the disposable income to buy one of these Allen Clues thumpers, then you're very lucky indeed. But nevertheless, these are very, very fast bikes on the track. They're certainly not short of the old horsepower, and they could give a modern bike a good run for their money when you put the right rider on top of one of these Allen Clues machines. And of course, this bike and many of the others that you will see in this paddock video can be seen racing on the track in forthcoming videos right here on my YouTube channel. Now, this particular rider looks like he's fitted a pair of bar risers to lift the handlebar height up. But a very nice looking machine. I'm not exactly sure of the year. It could be a 74 or possibly even a 75. I'm not exactly sure, but these CCMs are all very nice and very pleasing to the eye, these old British machines. Now, this next featured bike is a 1962 Dot with the, of course, Villiers motor. Now, this is a bike that you very seldom see on the classic and vintage racetracks around the UK. Now, this particular bike, the owner told me, has been in his possession since he was 14 years old. Now, of course, throughout the years he has changed one or two things, but essentially the bike is as he bought it second hand back in the day. Now, the DOT title, or what they used to call devoid of trouble abbreviation, the owner tells me that is certainly not the case for his particular bike, as this little Villiers machine is quite high maintenance when it comes to keeping it running. But it's a good testament to the owner of this bike that he keeps the bike on the track, racing, rather than being tucked away in some corner of someone's workshop somewhere. And it's quite a nimble little machine, as you will no doubt find out if you watch the racing videos that will be following this paddock walkabout. But nevertheless, it's still a very nice little old classic from 1962. That's a lovely 250 Dot. Okay, next up we're going to take a look at Callum Wilson's very nice little CR250 Honda Elsinore. Now, in the past, Callum has ridden many different makes and models of machines, including his big 510 Husqvarna and other configurations of machines, but Callum says he absolutely loves this little machine. It is so quick and so nimble. He says it's just a complete joy to race on the racetrack. Now, of course, many people will regard these 250 Honda Elsinores as Honda's very first purpose-built motocross racing machine. Honda in the past had built off-road bikes, but these were basically based on road-going machines that were just adapted for a racetrack, but this was Honda's first ever purpose-built motocross machine, and it was hugely successful when it first came to the UK in the early 1970s. The little 250 two-stroke motors were absolutely superb with these magnesium side cases, but these were very quick little bikes back in the day, and still are very quick machines. It's a very nice and almost original looking bike, this one of Callum's, apart from these Maxton rear shocks, but nevertheless a very tidy and very smart looking little 1974 CR 250 Elsinore. Okay, our next featured bike is Richard Sharp's very nice looking 250 CZ. Now, as far as I'm aware, Richard is a relatively newcomer to the Scottish Classic Motorcycle Racing Club, and of course you can see Richard in action on this very nice CZ in the next video here on my YouTube channel. A nice original looking bike, this one of Richard. Now as to what year I'm unsure. It looks like it could be a 1973 or thereabouts, but then again I'm just guessing really. They're very popular machines, these CZs, for classic and vintage racing at the moment. There seems to be more and more of these Czechoslovakian bikes appearing on the racetrack. Now, whether that's down to availability or maybe they're just a little bit more reliable than some of the other makes and models, I don't know, but this one of Richard's is a very nice bike indeed. As you can see, the weather at this point in the paddock at the Thornhill Scramble was absolutely superb, and thankfully the weather stayed good like this for the remainder of the day, but we weren't complaining about that. So that's Richard Sharp's very nice 250 CZ. So next up, it's the turn of Brian Hamilton's CZ, a different model of course from that of Richard's. Now, I know you're just begging me to say what the year of this bike is, so I'm not going to be pulled into that question, so I'm just going to abstain from the particular year of this bike, but it's still a very nice example of another Czechoslovakian CZ. Now, this bike, of course, of Brian's has the translucent fuel tank, so rather than take the fuel cap off and shake the tank about to see how much fuel you've got in it, you can just look along the outside and see exactly how much fuel you have left. Now, this 250 bike, of course, is just one of the CZ machines that Brian races. Brian also has a 360 CZ bike for a backup machine. So Brian can often be seen jumping from this 250 bike onto his other 360 when and if the need requires it. Now you can see Brian racing this bike and his other 360 machine in the pre-1975 class. You can also see Brian racing this bike in the over 60s class in the second part of the race programme. Now our next featured bike is Andy Malik's 414 Montesa Capra. Now Andy has owned this bike for many years and had a lot of successes while racing it, and Andy tells me that the bike has been ultra reliable during that period, and the engine has only had one replacement piston in all that time. Now these Spanish Montesas are yet another one of the rare machines that you very seldom see racing on the classic racetracks around the UK at the moment. They are very seldom seen, and Andy is just one of a very small group of riders who still race these very quick little Spanish Montesas. Now this bike is Andy's second bike, or spare bike if you will. Andy normally races his 1983 500 Armstrong in the pre-1984 class, and this is normally Andy's backup bike or spare bike, but Andy's Armstrong has been running so well this year that he has very seldom had the chance to use his old 414 Montesa. Now of course this old Montesa is still in almost its original condition, although Andy does tend to change things from time to time, but nevertheless the bike is a very good example of that original 414 Montesa Capra. Okay, it's scrutineering time. It's time for the bikes to get their preliminary pre-ride checks from the officials here at the Scottish Classic Motorcycle Racing Club. And there you can see one of the Smith boys having his 81 490 Michael checked over. Of course it's just a basic check of the footrest to fold back, spokes, brakes front and rear working, and just a general check over of the bike, make sure that the wheel bearings etc are all in good conditions. That's Stevie Shores Husqvarna there, he's very nice 74 Husqvarna. And next up we have Mike Doby with his CR250 Honda. David Loudon there checking that everything's as it should be, make sure the throttle returns etc. A bit of a squeak coming from Mike's back wheel there. Might be a bit playing one of the rear wheel bearings, but looks like it's good to go. Number 17 there, that's Mike van der Meer on the 81 490 Michael. Just getting his bike checked by David Loudon. But it looks like Vandy's bike has got a clean bill of health and is ready to race.
17.
Number 122 there, that's Fergus Moody with his very quick BSA. Look out for Fergus racing in the pre 6 to 8 class. He's very quick on this old Beamer. Number 14 there, of course, is Brian Hamilton, getting one of his CZ bikes checked over. Davey just checking the suspension, the brakes, the footrests. Make sure the throttle returns, back wheel looks good. These, of course, are just pre-safety checks, and it's not a full MOT, obviously, for these bikes. It's just to make sure that the bare essentials of the bike are fit to race. Now, number 101 there, that's Ian Ward with Ian Munro's BSA. Number 25 there is, that's Jake Whitelaw on his quite nice looking CCM. As Jake just handing his tag over to the officials to show the officials that he's already signed on to race, and this is the second part of the process where you get your bike scrutineered. And number 51 there, that's one of the lady riders who raced with the club. That's Helen Cahill. Helen is shortly to go into retirement, I hear, and she's putting this lovely BSA number 51 bike up for sale. And so as we head back to the paddock to catch a few more bikes, this next feature bike, this number 24 machine, is Sam Sibbald's TT500 Yamaha. Now, Sam races his bike in the pre-1975 class. Now, that fancy looking swing arm, of course, is not a genuine Yamaha swing arm, and Sam told me that this swing arm came off a Kawasaki. But currently, during the 2019 racing season, this bike has been absolutely superb for Sam, and he has achieved thus far some cracking results while riding this 500cc Yamaha monster. But of course, just don't take my word for it. Look out for Sam racing this machine in the pre-1975 in the up-and-coming racing videos from the 2019 Thornhill Scramble. Once again, another popular make of machine for classic and twin shock racing, these TT500 Yamahas. Of course, these TT500 motors have been used in various other frames and other makes of machines other than Yamahas, but you can see why the riders choose these TT500 motors. They're almost indestructible. Okay, next up we have yet another Czechoslovakian CZ. Now this machine is Stevie Shores twin port 250 CZ. Now Stevie also races a Husqvarna 74 Husqvarna as a backup bike, but Stevie told me that every time he comes back to the paddock after a race on this little bike, he says he just grins from ear to ear. He says the bike is just so much fun to race on these classic racetracks. Of course, back in the day there was many famous motocross racers raced these twin port CZs. Joel Robert, I'm sure, raced one of these bikes, and I'm sure Brad Lackey also raced one of these bikes a way back in the day. But nevertheless, I could never understand why a manufacturer would place these exhaust pipes so low slung on a motocross machine when if you were to race in deep mud, these would almost certainly be grounded, but I suppose they had their own reasons. But that's Stevie Shores' very nice twin port CZ. Okay, our last and final bike from the paddock here at the 2019 Thornhill Scramble is a recently constructed machine from Joe Maxwell Engineering. Now this bike has just come straight from the Joe Maxwell workshop and was delivered here at Thornhill to Irish racer John Griffiths. Now John of course races classic dirt bikes in Northern Ireland, and in particular races one of those fantastic Cecil Pearson Japs. And this was of course the first day of delivery of John's brand new machine, so naturally he couldn't wait to try it on the track at this 2019 Thornhill Scramble. Now between the order date and the completion date, John said he waited almost a year for this bike to be finished, but now that he has taken delivery, he is absolutely over the moon with this 1974 Alan Clues CCM machine. So John is hoping to take this bike for its first test ride to iron out some of the little wrinkles that you have in a brand new bike. So look out for John in action in the next video here from the Thornhill Scramble. Now prior to the start of racing, the organisers then had a minute's silence in memory of the late Ian Robertson.
We're going to start practice. Steve goes first. Yeah, Steve goes first. Get the marshals out, have our practice, we'll come in for our break.